We often think of history as a series of static portraits, dusty, silent, and distant. But what if I told you that the ground you walk on is breathing with the ghosts of a revolution you never saw? This film was meticulously crafted using advanced AI to bridge the gap between the digital present and a visceral, forgotten past. It is an invitation to step through the screen and feel the cold damp of a London that no longer exists. If you enjoy deep dives into the hidden mechanics of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of time travelers. Now, let us peel back the skin of the modern world. To inhabit London in 1810 is to live within a paradox. It is a city suspended in a delicate, agonizing tension between the refined elegance of the Georgian era and the brutal, metallic roar of the Industrial Revolution. This is not the sanitized version of history found in costume dramas. This is a city of horses, thousands of them, whose hooves create a rhythmic, deafening thunder against the cobblestones. It is a city of oil lamps that flicker like dying stars against an encroaching, unnatural darkness.
Fresh fabrics right here, best price in the city. Come look.
In 1810, London was the largest city in the world, a bloated, ambitious metropolis of over 1 million souls. It was a threshold moment. The courtly world of powdered wigs and silk breeches was being pushed aside by men in top hats and soot-covered aprons. The modern world wasn't born in a laboratory. It was forged in the mud, smoke, and ambition of these streets. We aren't just looking at history, we are witnessing the messy, violent birth of us. To understand 1810 London, you must first breathe it. The air is not an empty space. It is a heavy, tactile presence. It is a thick soup of coal smoke from a million domestic fires, mingled with the brackish, sulfurous stench of the River Thames. The fog here isn't just weather, it's a living entity. It clings to your wool coat, seeps into your pores, and leaves a gritty residue of carbon on your tongue. The city is an organism, restless and relentless. Beneath the haze, the population is surging, a human tide drawn from the countryside by the promise of coin. The social hierarchy is etched into the very geography of the streets. In the West End, the air is marginally clearer, scented with expensive tobacco and imported perfumes. But just a mile away, in the rookeries of St. Giles, the air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, rotting refuse, and the copper tang of blood from the butcher shops.
Gone, same as your last promise.
Mind your own business, you old hag.
Yet despite the staggering inequality, everyone shares the same suffocating atmosphere. The Duke in his carriage and the crossing sweeper in the gutter are both breathing the same industrial exhaust. This shared sensory experience created a city of intense friction, a place where the heights of human achievement and the depths of human misery occupied the same square inch of ground. If you look toward the river in 1810, you would see a sight both magnificent and terrifying: Old London Bridge. By this year, it had stood for over 6 centuries, a gargantuan stone fossil of the Middle Ages. But it was no longer a symbol of stability. It had become a lethal obstruction. The bridge's 19 narrow arches and massive protective piers, called sterlings, acted like a dam. They restricted the flow of the Thames so severely that the water level on either side could differ by several feet. This created the rapids, violent, churning currents that roared through the arches with the force of a waterfall. Shooting the bridge in a small boat was a daredevil's gamble. Hundreds of people drowned in those turbulent waters, swallowed by the river's rage.
Look at this. It's fundamentally flawed.
The bridge was a metaphor for London's soul. It was encrusted with history, yet it choked the city's commerce. The burgeoning British Empire needed a deep-water port, a gateway for the world's wealth, but this medieval relic stood in the way. It represented a city that was outgrowing its own bones. The demand for progress was screaming for the bridge's removal, but the weight of the past was heavy. It stood as the last witness of a vanished world, a stone giant waiting for the inevitable hammer of the industrial age. While the rivers struggled with the past, the streets were experimenting with the future. In 1810, a miracle occurred on Pall Mall. For the first time in human history, the night was truly conquered. Before this, the sun governed the human rhythm. When night fell, the world became a place of shadows, crime, and flickering, expensive candles. But then came Frederick Winsor and his thermolamp. He piped coal gas through lead pipes to iron lamps, and suddenly Pall Mall was bathed in a pale, ethereal blue-white glow.
We have to tell the others. Be quick.
The impact was psychological as much as it was practical. Gaslight didn't just illuminate the pavement, it extended the boundaries of civilization. It meant that labor could continue into the night, that safety was no longer a luxury of the dawn, and that the city never truly had to sleep. It birthed a new profession, the lamplighter, who became a silent guardian of the night. This conquest of darkness was the first true signal that technology was not just a tool, but a force capable of rewriting the laws of nature. Looming over the eastern edge of the city sat the Tower of London. In 1810, it was not the tourist destination we know today. It was a grim, multi-purpose engine of state power, fueled by the anxieties of the Napoleonic Wars.
$10 for the whole crate, fresh today.
Napoleon was the boogeyman of the era, and the tower was Britain's response. It was a massive warehouse for the machinery of war. Muskets, cannons, and gunpowder were packed into its cellars. It was a prison for those deemed a threat to the crown. It housed the Royal Mint, where the nation's gold was guarded behind thick stone, and strangely, it housed the Royal Menagerie, where lions and elephants paced in cages, their roars echoing against the prison walls, a symbol of the empire's reach over the natural world.
Move along, child.
The tower embodied the dual nature of the British state, the protector of the people and the oppressor of the dissenters. It was a place of psychological terror, a reminder that the same government that provided gaslight and commerce could also strip away your life and liberty in the name of national security. While the aristocrats were ending their nights at 4:00 a.m., the real London was just waking up. Covent Garden was the city's stomach. Long before the sun crested the horizon, the market was a chaotic, mud-slicked battlefield of survival. Cartloads of produce from the surrounding countryside clogged the narrow entries. The air was a cacophony of shouting vendors, braying donkeys, and the shattering of crates. Here, the two Londons collided. You might see a wealthy dandy in a disheveled silk waistcoat, stumbling out of a nearby finish, a late-night pub, brushing past a shivering 10-year-old girl selling watercress for a halfpenny. London didn't run on policy or royal decrees. It ran on this raw, desperate human energy. The labor was grueling, the hours were inhuman, and the rewards were meager. This segment of the city reveals the true mechanics of the 19th century. It was a machine lubricated by the sweat of the poor, operating in the shadows before the respectable world opened its eyes. A short walk from the filth of the markets lay the hushed, opulent corridors of St. James's. This was the nerve center of the global elite. In clubs like White's and Boodle, the fate of the world was decided over glasses of port and decks of cards. The wealth here was astronomical and largely invisible. In these rooms, men who had never seen a coal mine or a sugar plantation gambled away fortunes that could have fed a London parish for a decade. The disconnect was profound. While the city outside struggled for bread, the men inside these velvet-walled sanctuaries treated the empire like a game of chance. Decisions made here, a tax on tea, the movement of a fleet, the drawing of a border in a distant colony, had ripples that touched every corner of the globe. It was a theater of privilege where exploitation was rebranded as strategy, and the suffering of millions was reduced to a line in a ledger.
They said it was far.
To see the true cost of that privilege, one had to look down into the freezing, toxic sludge of the Thames at low tide. Here, you would find the mudlarks. These were children, some as young as 5, who waded through the river's filth to scavenge for scraps. A dropped copper coin, a piece of coal, a shard of old iron, anything that could be sold for a crust of bread. They worked in rags, their feet sliced by broken glass and sharp stones, breathing the miasma of a river that served as the city's primary sewer. The Thames was the city's artery, bringing in the riches of the world, but for the mudlarks, it was a graveyard. It was a place where the grandeur of the British Empire met the reality of its forgotten children. Their existence was a stinging indictment of the progress the city so loudly boasted about. Yet for all its cruelty, London was capable of moments of profound, collective magic. In late 1809 and into 1810, the city celebrated the Golden Jubilee of King George III. For a brief window, the divisions of class seemed to melt away under the glare of fireworks. The government provided massive public feasts, oxen were roasted in the streets, and fountains ran with wine. For a night, the mudlark and the duke looked at the same exploding sky. But there was a melancholy beneath the joy. The king was old, descending into the fog of mental illness, and the war with France was draining the nation's spirit. The Jubilee was a grand farewell to an older, simpler England. It was a final, radiant burst of light before the city plunged fully into the grimy, complex realities of the Victorian era. As the echoes of the Jubilee faded, the fog returned, the great fog that would define London for a century. It was the physical manifestation of the city's contradictions. It was beautiful in a haunting, Gothic way, turning the city into a dreamscape of silhouettes. But it was also deadly. This was a toxic mixture of water vapor and coal smoke, the pea-souper. It blinded travelers, caused carriages to collide, and provided a perfect veil for criminals. More importantly, it killed quietly. The respiratory diseases birthed in this fog would claim more lives than any war.
I'm trying. We can't stay here much longer.
The fog was the price of progress. To have the heat, the steam power, and the gaslight, London had to breathe its own waste. It was a reminder that every advancement comes with a shadow, and in 1810, that shadow was becoming permanent.
Best quality silks right here, madam.
As we return to the present, look again at the London of today. Beneath the asphalt of the Victoria Embankment lie the same stones that the mudlarks trod. Inside the walls of modern buildings are the descendants of those first gas pipes laid on Pall Mall.
Indeed.
London in 1810 is not a distant country, it is the blueprint of our own lives. The questions they grappled with are the same ones we face today. How do we balance technological advancement with human dignity? How do we fuel our world without destroying our environment? How do we ensure that the light of progress reaches the darkest corners of our society? The story of London in 1810 teaches us that progress is never a straight line. It is a messy, beautiful, and often tragic struggle. The lesson for us today is simple. Do not be blinded by the light of the news so much that you forget the people living in the shadows. In your own life, look for the mudlarks, the hidden costs of your comforts, and strive to build a future where progress doesn't require the sacrifice of the vulnerable.
Wait, where did the music go?
Now I want to hear from you. If you could step back into 1810 London for just 1 hour, where would you go? Would you seek the opulence of the St. James's clubs, or would you want to see the raw energy of Covent Garden? Let me know in the comments below. I wish you all great health, a clear vision for your future, and a heart that remembers the past. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more journeys through the corridors of time. Until next time, keep exploring.